the issues around debt and the budget-making process?
Yeah, thank you so much, Fred. Fred, issues of public debt in this country, issues of serious public concern. And this is basically because where we are now, debt sustainability is becoming an issue. We all claim that we are still safe, but if we look at where we are critically, we are almost actually getting into debt distress. And that's why you see this country, we have to do things differently. When the president was campaigning with this team, he was giving us a lot of hope in that they were saying they will not be borrowing. They will see how they can reduce public debt so as to release other resources for other economic activities. But what has happened, I think when they came into office, they realized that the hole was so deep that they had to continue dipping it deeper. And that's what the problem is. But let's just unpack the issue of public debt. What is it we are discussing? We are discussing a debt of 11 trillion, which is about 70% of our GDP, which in simple terms translates like for every 100 shillings, 70% is 70 shillings debt repayment, 30 shillings for the rest of the things we do in this economy. So what has happened because of that squeeze from debt repayment, and you know debt repayment is a first charge to the consolidated fund services, so that before you pay anything, you must pay that debt. So if you get 100 shillings and then 70 you pay, before you plan another thing, you have recurrent expenditure, you have development expenditure, you realize that your fiscal space is so squeezed to a level that you can't do much. So the issue of flexibility of our fiscal space has been adversely affected, and that's the challenge we have. So if you look at the repayment, 1.8, which is written here, you realize interest alone is about 1 trillion. Interest alone. Now, if you unpack the interest alone, you realize about 60% of that interest is domestic payment for domestic debt, and then the rest is payment for external debt. So, you know, when you have such a huge domestic debt and you continue borrowing locally, what would happen is the government now starts competing for credit with the private sector. So imagine where Honorable Kirwa goes with this company to borrow from a bank, and the government comes and says, we also want to borrow from the same bank. Imagine who would get the loan first. So we have actually kind of stopped our private sector from accessing cheap loan, basically because the government now is borrowing locally. And normally what would happen when you do that, we say crowding out the private sector. But at the same time, we all claim that private sector is the engine of economic growth in any country. So the cow which gives you milk, you are starving it of food, and then you expect to get milk. So it's a very complicated scenario, and that's what worries us most. And I think these issues of debt, because the issues we have discussed many times, Fred, where the challenges are, first of all, the public debt register has become an issue. We have been asking ourselves, how much have we borrowed? From who? For what purpose? That's the first question. Then the second question is, after borrowing, have we really applied that money to where it was intended? You remember at one point, the Eurobond 2014, the Auditor General did confirm he could not even trace where the money went. If anybody asks you today, show us one big project which was done from the proceeds of 2014 Eurobond, you will struggle to show one project. So the issue is, are we applying our loan to the right activities? And the third question is, are Kenyans aware of the repayment timelines? Do we know when we will be paying this loan, when and that? And then the fourth question, as we continue taking these loans, are we thinking about our future generations? The law demands that you think about intergenerational equity, that the borrowing today must be so well structured that we don't overburden our future generations.
Right.
These are the issues.
And you raised an issue, a very key issue about transparency in this borrowing. Bwana Kirwa, during the campaign,